Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Planet Film Network. I am one of your hosts, Sean Monk,
And I'm brother TJ Cornwell.
and today we are coming at you with a special weekend edition of Planet Film Network. I have been on vacation, as you guys know, so we didn't have a show the last 2 weeks. We are coming back this Wednesday, but there's just been too much stuff piling up that we want to get to. First of which being the Thunderbolts. We went and saw the Thunderbolts together Thursday, pretty much like 2 days after I got home from my vacation, which was awesome. Saw it in IMAX. And TJ, we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about this movie. The 37th entry in the MCU, directed by Jake Schreier, starring Sebastian Stan as Bucky Barnes, Florence Pugh as Yelena Belova, David Harbour as Red Guardian, Wyatt Russell as John Walker / U.S. Agent, Hannah John Kamen as Ava Star / Ghost, and of course, Olga Kurylenko as Taskmaster. Also starring Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Val and Geraldine Viswanathan as the brand new MCU character, huge new MCU character introduced as Mel. And Lewis Pullman as Bob. Big cast.
Yeah.
But wanted to everybody gets their chance to shine, and we're gonna go over it. So, TJ, before any spoilers start, what were your overall thoughts on this movie? Are we so back? Have we never been more back? Was it fine? Was it terrible? What's going on?
No, I had a lot of fun with this movie. I thought it was a great time in the theater. I after it ended, I leaned over to you and we saw it in IMAX and brand new IMAX screen as well. I don't know if this was the first movie that
Sinners was first movie I've seen though. Yeah,
on the brand new screen. I leaned over to you. I said, I don't know if it was the IMAX allure of it all, but this movie just looked great. Like, it's the best I feel like one of these Marvel movies has looked in a long time. And I think that's probably mainly to the fact that a lot of it isn't, CG, like a lot of it's practical sets and all that stuff.
Yeah, a lot of big practical sets.
Right. So that was something that I definitely noticed right off the bat. I love the whole story with Sentry and, kind of these, in the comics, I believe he's kind of got this split personality thing. And in the movie, they kind of go into, he's got these two sides where, he has the kind of, I don't want to call it like aloof, like good side, but almost just kind of happy-go-lucky kind of guy.
Yeah.
And then the other side is the Void, which is kind of, looking at depression and mental illness and, how people kind of deal with that. And I thought they did a really good job showing that off and then showing it off for each of our characters. I probably would have liked it a little bit more for, certain characters. I guess Ghosts probably mainly, because, I feel like this movie is doing a lot of work for that character in particular, just because of Ant-Man and the Wasp. And me personally, I was not a fan of Ghost going into this movie.
Yeah.
So I would have liked a little bit more there. I loved all their chemistry together. The whole crew I thought was fantastic. Everybody worked really well off each other. Mainly, of course, David Harbour and Florence Pugh I thought were awesome. I just want to give a quick shout out to the guy who played Wendell Pierce.
Oh yeah, you were loving this guy.
He is hilarious in this movie. Yeah. He doesn't get much like screen time, but what he does, he's just really, really funny. Mm-hmm. I thought maybe the whole kind of hearing thing was a little, I could have pretty much done without it, I guess. I thought Julia Louis-Dreyfus was okay. I don't know. It was just sometimes with maybe her line reads or something, I was just like, I just not feeling this. And I feel like going into this, I was kind of sold on her character, even though she was kind of forced into, like Wakanda Forever, and then I think she made an appearance in Falcon Winter Soldier for a little bit.
Yeah. And Black Widow.
And Black Widow. Overall, I had a great time. I think this is definitely a good sign moving forward. And I saw like a quote, I think yesterday of, I don't know if it was an interview Kevin Feige did or just a report that going forward, like I think he had said that the movies had started to feel like homework. Like everything started to feel like
Yeah.
homework. Like it's like, oh, we gotta watch this and that. They were, going forward for like at least like show wise, they're gonna go with like 1 or 2 live action shows a year, which I think is like a perfect blend. If you could do that with like 2 movies, I think you really, maybe you're back to
hitting it.
The base level of where we want to be for the MCU universe. But I thought Thunderbolts was a great start to that.
Yeah, it's interesting just going off what you said about those articles. It's interesting when after Cap comes out, you're in everyone at Marvel's in protection mode.
Yeah.
Then I won't say it's a crazy financial hit. We won't know that until we're recording this Sunday morning, so we'll probably know in a couple hours how it's going to do on opening weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's safe to assume a modest to successful opening weekend, if not higher than that.
Yeah.
But either way, no matter how it does financially, like when you have a win like this, critically and like fan response, I mean, you're looking at it's got an A- on Cinema Score. And the Cinema Score for the MCU movies have been going down a lot recently. There was a stretch leading up to Endgame where the lowest Cinema Score for an MCU movie was A-. But then things like Multiverse of Madness and Thor: Love and Thunder got into the Bs. And then Cap was like a B-, I think, which is very not good in terms of Cinema Score. But it's just interesting when you have these positive outlooks, how that's when the articles start coming out of Kevin Feige acknowledging, maybe things did get a little away from us. It's like, it's just interesting how it's like, you can't really do that when you're in the face of scrutiny, but it's like when you're kind of riding this high, I think it's important that like somebody like Kevin Feige chooses to use that high that they're riding to admit like a fault, you know what I mean? To be like, yeah, it kind of got away from us a little bit. Like, because they could just be like, yeah, see, we're back. We never left. And it's like, they take their time, and they did the same thing with, I feel like when Agatha was coming out, which was a really well-received show, that they were like, yeah, some of these shows, they got a little too expensive. They got a little too, whatever. And I just think it's interesting. And then on something like Daredevil, which I liked a lot, and a lot of people did like, but had a very, very, not problematic, but a very difficult production life. They weren't really saying any of that stuff because it's like they want to kind of move on. But a lot of those articles that were coming out this week were really interesting. That some insight into Feige himself, how he views everything that's been going on. There was also a great quote from Jake Schreier that I saw, I think talking to Perry Nemiroff at Collider, which was that he kind of like, he didn't want to fully say it, but he was like, I also think it's really nice that the post-credit scene kind of returns to that form of like really mattering, like, like really being important for what's about to come next, as opposed to just teasing something for a sequel that we haven't even gotten in 6 years, which happened like 3 times. All that being said, my thoughts on this movie, I thought it was fantastic. I mean, like, I loved this movie. I'm a huge Wyatt Russell fan in general, and a huge John Walker fan in general. I'll just focus on him because you kind of went into Ghost, which I believe I agree with a lot of the stuff that you said about Ghost for sure. But somebody like John Walker to me was somebody who we're rewatching Falcon and Winter Soldier right now. We actually just finished rewatching it before we go and see Thunderbolts with my roommate. We just finished it yesterday, and then we're going to watch Cap 4 and then go and see Thunderbolts. But he is just the chemistry and the kind of the characterization that Malcolm Spellman and a couple of the other writers on Falcon and Winter Soldier put into John Walker. I just think that the writers of this movie and Jake Schreier and Wyatt Russell himself really just understand this character and use it for some of the best dramatic moments of the movie. One really particular, one where Bucky delivers a kind of surprise, kind of a gut punch of information about where Walker's at, that I thought was a really effective moment, and particularly what Bucky says, but then the kind of just look of understanding between Florence Pugh and Wyatt Russell in that scene, I thought was fantastic. And which, it's I'm not saying that this is like a 10 out of 10 movie where it revolutionizes everything. That's like a beat that you've seen in movies before, where it's like, but this whole time you've been pretending like, and you're like,
right.
what can I do? I'm damaged. It's like,
you and
but
us, not so different.
Yeah, exactly. But the point is, like, a moment like that, I just think is
You and
done
me.
to such a high caliber in this movie. And then even some of the comedy that they get from John Walker is fantastic. And then going further to the comedy, I thought David Harbour as Red Guardian is somebody who can very easily, I think, tip over into like too much.
Yeah.
And I don't think he did in this movie. And I'm like, I don't really know how they did that, because I'm like, that to me is a character that I usually would like get annoyed with. But I just thought that everything, I think it was just the balance they struck of endearing to just like chaotic like presence that they put on Red Guardian. And again, I think just a big part of this movie is like, and kind of the entire point of the movie is like, why these guys? That's the entire point of this movie. And I think that the writing really helped them deliver the answer of like, why these guys? It's like, because they're awesome to watch. Like they're like, it's a great mix of people. It's a great mix of talent, helped by the writing, but also massively helped by the direction and just kind of like the stewardship of this project by Jake Schreier, who has repeatedly been like, Wyatt Russell talked about on Falcon and Winter Soldier. It was just kind of like, you do this prep and then you show up and like you're ready to go, and you're doing this show now and it's this big thing. He was like, this movie had weeks and weeks of rehearsals, of time for the the cast to get together, to get to know each other. He talked about it was this interview I saw with Wyatt Russell and David Harbour where they had talked about the way that Jake Schreier, it kind of reminded me of what everybody talked about with Poor Things, where it was like that Yorgos Lanthimos brought them all in a auditorium, basically in a theater for like a month, and just got everybody to interact with each other to like figure out all the dynamics. And Wyatt Russell said a really interesting thing in a interview, which was every time they would go into one of those like character dynamic sessions, he was like, yeah, I would come away learning more about John Walker, but I'd learn even more about the other person on the team. Yeah. So like, he was like, I'd have a day where I would be going with Florence, and it's like, wow, I'm really starting to understand this Yelena character. And I think that really helped contribute to kind of the end of this movie, buying into how they end it, which can be and has been a very cheesy thing in the past in different movies and different shows. But again, I think with this movie, they just nail it so well. You believe that all of these people in this short to long amount of time, it's got the timeline of this movie is kind of nebulous. I would say it either takes place over like 3 days or like 3 weeks, but the amount of time and conversation that they've put in together, I just think really makes the ending believable, and where you have to get to with all the characters to believe that the ending will work for this movie. I think they nailed it, and I'm really excited to talk more in spoilers about the ending in specific, and some other characters that we can't really get that much into in the spoiler-free setting. But yeah, that is my initial spoiler-free thoughts on the movie. I think we both really liked it. But guys, if you haven't seen it yet, let us know right now down below, what did you think of Thunderbolts? This is our non-spoiler review. TJ, do you have a score out of 5 for the non-spoiler?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 4. 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. Yeah, I have not ranked this or rated this on Letterboxd yet, and I think I'm going to go with a 4. I think I'm going to go with a 4.5 out of 5. I think I really liked it. Maybe I'm grading it on a curve just because of like where we have been, but
yeah.
I mean, this is a movie. I mean, I'll rewatch Cap 4. So I'm going to rewatch this one. I mean, I haven't rewatched a Marvel movie in theaters since, well, I guess just 2 ago, Deadpool and Wolverine. But you know what I mean? Very different, and I don't buy into the whole like, well, Guardians was great, but it's not really broadening the MCU. So does it really count? Deadpool and Wolverine was great, but it's not really focused on the MCU. If the movie is made by Kevin Feige and his team, they get credit for it. That's how my brain works. I don't think just because Guardians was focused on Guardians, it doesn't count, in like the MCU's win column. I think it absolutely does. So for me, I just think that going through this and the fact that we're getting Fantastic Four so soon, just gives me a really good feeling. And like you and I said in the theater, it's like we needed this as like audience members, but I think that Marvel really needed this as, a studio to kind of at least start going, hey guys, things are going in a good direction. And I think the end credit scene probably lends to that, which we'll talk a little bit more in detail. But that'll do it for our non-spoiler review, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you are checking out just the non-spoiler review, we will have our full spoiler review up, which will have this video and another section on it for once you see the movie. So thank you so much, and check out that video as well.